Yesterday was the feast of the Sacred Heart of Jesus, and today is the feast of the Immaculate Heart of Mary. It's interesting in the Church's year of grace that all the seasons we go through and the major feasts, the Corpus Christi, the Holy Trinity, but the one that is at the end is the feast of the Sacred Heart of Jesus and the Immaculate Heart of Mary. And the reason is because when you reflect on why did God come into our midst? Why did God suffer for us? Why did he do all that he did? Because we were deserving? Because it was justice? No, ultimately the answer is found in the feast. God did this because of his love for us, the Sacred Heart of Jesus. And the motivation that we have as helpers, you see, as we go out there to pray today, it has to be the same. We have to be driven by love. Love for a world that Jesus came into that was broken. Love for a world that is in need of a Savior. A world that is in this culture of darkness and in death, and they need Christ. So it was the same answer yesterday, today, and forever. And we go with Mary. The Immaculate Heart of Mary. Immaculate because she was being prepared to be that instrument of bringing Christ to the world within herself and then to bring him to the world. And so we ask her intercession. You know, in coming here this morning to St. John Vianney, if you have a sense of history or time, it gives you more perspective of what's happening and what has taken place. In 1967, I was on the faculty of Cathedral College Seminary, and there was a young priest, Father McCabe, and Father McCabe was asked to start St. John Vianney's parish. And he asked us to come and to offer Mass, which we did. I think it was Singers Hall. It was a type of place where they would rent it out during the week, and then on Sunday, he would turn it into a place for the offering of Mass. And I remember on Sunday's Mass, we'd be smelling the beer odors and liquors from the night before. But that's where it began. And we offered Mass there until this parish opened. We really didn't come back here until with the last pastor. There was an abortion mill on Main Street, Northern Boulevard, and we did vigils from here, and it closed down. And now another one has opened called Liberty's Clinic, and we go there today. But St. John Vianney's, at that time, was very, very popular because people don't realize that we are starting the year of the priest, and we're starting it with the 150th anniversary of the death of St. John Vianney, 1859, and we're doing that today. But when I was ordained, actually it's 50 years ago, okay? And 50 years ago, I was a deacon, and the whole of the year, especially here in the Diocese of Brooklyn, was in honor and dedicated to St. John Vianney. It was the 100th anniversary of John Vianney. And books were put out and meditations were done on various aspects of his life, and it was presented to the young men to imitate that example. So that was 50 years ago. And today, 150 years, Pope Benedict XVI had declared that this is a year to pray for priests and to ask them to imitate the example of John Vianney. At the end of the benediction this morning, I have a little prayer card, a John Vianney prayer card, and a prayer on the back of it for priests. And I also have with me, which is about 100 years old, I have a relic, a first-class relic of the bones of St. John Vianney. And what we will do is at the end of the benediction, for those who wish to be blessed with the relic of St. John Vianney. I know there's a first-class relic in Rome that's starting it today. Well, we happen to have a first-class relic of the bones of St. John Vianney 100 years ago. I have with me today. and we'll bless the people and give you the prayer card and ask you to pray for priests during this coming year. It's a prayer that ends with the intercession of John Vianney for today's priest. But I speak of that because actually on the 125th anniversary of John Vianney, Pope John Paul II, he wanted to go to Ars in France. And a funny thing had happened. The priest did not want him to come. There was about 300 priests signed a letter insisting the Pope not to come. That John Vianney was no longer relevant, that he wasn't a good example for modern day priest. And well, obviously he did go, but with great consternation. The people gave him a very difficult time. Who gave him? The priest. The priest in France. But time passes, and everybody realizes how wrong they were as they emptied out the churches. How wrong they were not to see the essence of the priesthood, no matter what you're doing, if you do not have a sense of prayer and fasting, an adoration of the Blessed Sacrament, and a great sense of compassion and reconciliation and penance and what are you? I mean, all the things change, but this is important. And so now, on the 150th anniversary, lo, John Vianney is back in style. John Vianney is held up for the world, the priests throughout the world, to imitate the example. So in a very special way, people who are from John Vianney Parish, it's important for you to maintain a prayer throughout this whole year, so you get a perspective. In other words, things change when you see it in terms of time. In other words, when I started 50 years ago, the whole diocese, John Vianney, the 100th anniversary, 25 years later, being rejected. 50 years later, back. Right? Things change. But eventually the truth prevails. The truth prevails. And I'd just like this morning to briefly say that during these 50 years, what about this area of life? Well, when I was ordained a priest, shortly after I was ordained a priest, there was a young politician who wanted to be president. His name was John F. Kennedy. And the election was coming up in November of 1960. And the election was very close. There was a certain amount of anti-Catholicism, yet fear that if a Catholic was running for president, that the Pope, the Church, would tell him what to do, and they must not vote for such a person. And so in September of 1960, John F. Kennedy went to Houston, Texas, and he gave a talk to the Great Evangelical Association of Houston, Texas, mostly Baptist ministers. And he gave a talk which set a tone and a precedent that has hurt us. He simply said to them, look, you don't have to worry. Nothing that the church teaches will I put into effect as President of the United States. I will make a complete separation between my personal beliefs and what the church teaches. Now, wait a second. The church teaches things like belief in the Eucharist, the seven sacraments, so forth. You can't impose that. That's a gift of faith. But the church also teaches us, see, what's right or wrong, about the Ten Commandments of God, about the natural law that applies to all mankind, like thou shalt not kill. Right? And you cannot simply say, because the church teaches this, I will not allow that to influence any of my decisions, any of the laws that are passed. And suddenly, he committed himself to all types of things that were shutting out a person who was to run, if he was Catholic, from speaking on anything that applied to all of mankind, because it was part of the natural law. Because they say, you're a Catholic, don't impose your Catholic faith. And so suddenly in the public square, in the public forum, a person who was Catholic was told they can't speak about an issue like life and death, like abortion. That's imposing the church's teaching. No, wait a second. The church says things that apply to all mankind. It's called the Ten Commandments of God. It's the natural law.